When we think of church, many people envision a building, a place of worship, pews, a pulpit, a pastor, a traditional choir, and this. The church is so much more than a building. It's the people ministering and preaching the word of God, meeting people right where they are and saving souls. My name is Pastor Frederick Arnold Allen, and this is Saved by the Cross. Would you like to read it?
The justice system is truly broken beyond repair, and the sad part is that there's no way to start over. Improvements can be made if honest people stand up, and I think that they will be made over time. I know the average person isn't paying attention to all the laws constantly being passed by state and federal legislation. People are more focused on their jobs, raising kids, and trying to find entertainment in between time. The thing is, laws are being changed right and left.
A man once said that revolution comes when you inform people of their rights. Martin Luther King said revolution comes by social action and legal action working hand in hand. I'm not presiding any racial revolution or views. The word revolution means change, American change as a law's change. Do you agree with that?
Well, to back up, when he talked about the justice system is truly broken beyond repair, I can't totally agree with that, because as long as there's human beings living, there can be an attempt to rectify things. So I don't think it's beyond repair. And then he says there is no way to start over. Well, we're still living. There's always a start to something if you want to start over. So I don't necessarily agree with how that was stated. He said improvements can be made if honest people stand up. So, well, what do you call honest? Because how did the laws get to the way that they are? But the point I want to try to make to you is that in running reference to what he's talking about, the laws that are being made that affect the people that we're probably thinking about, in our culture, we're not even groomed up to be focused on law or politics. Like, and I'm only saying that from coming up, say, most of my uprearing was in Delaware. Most of the time when children are being bred up in groups of people, we're not even thinking about laws and legislation and governmental things or politics necessarily. So when you're raised up a certain way, you're not, even as you get older, you're not even thinking about how all of that process works. And then you really start understanding it a little better when you become a victim of it. Oh, I understand that about the law, and I understand this about it, because now I'm in the legal system. But even in our natural upbringing, we don't have stuff that we go to get schooled on law and rules and legislation and none of that. People are not even, the majority of the people I don't think are even interested. A lot of people are not even interested in politics, or so. They not only don't deal with legislation and how laws are made, they don't even deal with sometimes the voting, and some people don't even vote, and they're not even a part of that political process. We just become victims because of maybe sometimes how we're raised up and how our society is cultured. And so What I'm finding is the stuff that we need to be learning about or being taught as we're being raised up, it's not even part of our upbringing. So therefore, when we say we look at these laws and so on and so forth, we only understand about the laws when we get involved with breaking them oftentimes. We're not on the proactive side, you know what I'm saying, about, okay, we better learn all of this to make sure that we're putting proper laws in place so that when people get into these crimes and situations, that it's appropriate based on the kind of crime that they committed. People are not a part of that process. You probably find a select group of individuals that are making the decisions about things, that have that interest, and they might not be the best people to be doing that. You know, and like say Delaware, whoever put the death penalty in place, I'm not sure who all those individuals were, but 9 times out of 10, the people that are victims of that law were not part of that process of putting those laws in place. I'm not really sure, to be honest with you, who put those laws in place.
So then we can agree with them that the system is broken.
It could be. It could be.
Okay.
Or it's not, is it?
It's okay.
I'm so sorry.
So if
Can you pause that? I have to take this.
pause it for a minute.
Okay.
Feeling this, I mean, so.
Oh, wait.
Okay.
So we can agree that the system is broken because we don't know exactly who's calling the shots on who dies and who lives and who go to prison and who don't go to prison. They say that we have a hand in that, but we don't. Is it, in other words, if I was to get arrested today in Delaware,
Mhm.
and if I said, well, I want to go to trial, and I go to trial, and they said, we want to give you people of your peers. Will my peers be there, or will there be other people that will judge me other than my peers? I'm a black man going inside of a courtroom. I got a white judge, white DA, assistant DA.
Mhm.
My lawyers that they gave me, because I don't have no money, are also white. And the jury that they bring in, the pool that I have to pick from, is nothing but white people because those are my peers. They don't live where I live, but they live in the state where I live. But the people of my skin color probably won't be there because they can't be on a jury if they have a record. And we know that at least 50% of black people, or probably more, have been in contact with some parts of the law. And maybe 25% just don't even want to go, so they don't even answer it. So I'm stuck with basically a sea of white people and say I'm the only black person in this courtroom. Would that be fair?
Would that be fair? Well, I'm not one to say just because everything pertaining to the whole legal process are reflective of white individuals that justice cannot be served. I can't make that statement. And I can't presume that if it was all black, that justice would be. It's really about people's faith in what they believe in. So, you know, we do have a due process of law, and if people's hearts are right, and if they're presented facts in certain fashion, irrespective of their color, you know, justice potentially could be served. Just to say that there was more black faces, that I would get a fairer trial, I couldn't really, that's a presumption. You know,
Okay.
they might find me guilty too, I don't, so I'm just saying that, and or to say that because all of them are white, that I'm, okay, not gonna get a fair trial or get through this or maybe get handed a harsher sentence, we couldn't necessarily say that. So it's all really sort of presumptive, but the problem is, we're looking at really, the root problem is our people are in a victim of a system where they can't be, where their voice can't be heard to really help their own, and that's unfortunate. You understand what I'm saying?
But the question is, we're trying to establish, is the system broken, like he's suggesting? Now, you said that we can't say if we would get a fair trial. I should have put the other element in there too. If I killed a white man and I'm black and going before all white courtroom and all white jury, would the be more so to find me guilty than innocent. Vice versa, if it was a white man going before an all-black courtroom, will we, as black individuals, find this white man guilty or innocent of killing a black man? Like I said, we may not know. But would racism play a part in that? Would the system be fair? Because I don't see nobody that looks like me in that courtroom.
Okay.
Just like the white man won't see nobody in that courtroom that would look like him if it was just an all-black courtroom. So there would be some leeway to say, well, yes, this is not unfair.
Well, it's, I couldn't say that, things are, I'm a systemic person. It's really going way back to the roots of the situation. I'm not one to put a Band-Aid on things and deal with something about what I'm seeing. I'm looking at, okay, what is the root cause of what you're talking about? And it's apparent that based on our history and what has happened in our past has great impact on what we see now. If we see the absence of us as a race of people in the judicial system and in the legal system, it's from certain reasons. We've become victim of a system, and I think drugs has a lot to do with that. And the crimes that African Americans have committed, which has, caused most of our men to be locked up in jail. So now they're not even eligible out here to maybe even be picked to be on a jury stand. So it's a greater system working beyond the scenes as to why we have a problem where there potentially may be all Caucasian individuals in the whole process and very few of us. And then we got to take into account that there's not that many of us. We are still a minority. So like, for example, like in the state of Delaware, as opposed to having maybe, like say, this is just fictitious, but say 400-some thousand white males, we might only have 100-some thousand black men. So the disparity even in the amount of people that live in Delaware, well, it's not going to really, it's always going to be the majority of Caucasians because there's not that many blacks. So you understand what I'm saying? So there's other extenuating circumstances and situations that cause it to all be what you're saying. So we can't forget that. You know?
Let me interject here for a minute. It's not about the numbers. People don't get respect because of numbers. People get respect because of what they know. Information is what gains people respect. Now we know that in this state, that there's white people, there's black people. There's also Jewish people here too. You don't see the police, you don't see Jewish people, and it's smaller than black people that's in this state. You don't hear about them being disrespected. You don't hear about them being thrown to the courtrooms or anything. It's because they have built a community within the community that they protect their own. So it ain't about the numbers. It ain't about the numbers.
Okay, that's a good point.
It's about, we need to build our own power structure where we respect and honor each other, where we form a bond of unity, where we can stand up against those that's trying to oppress us. Because if we stand together, we can push back the oppression. However, it's not just the system that's unfair, because when we talk about the system, now we got to talk about the system on the outside of the court system. How did we get to where we are? A lot of our brothers and sisters, I'm speaking of black people because I'm black, we are already oppressed. We got poor schools, another system, poor training for jobs, we really got no help. All these millionaires that we got from basketball players and musicians and Jay-Z's, Creflo Dollars and TD Jakes, let's get together and build our own mall. Let's build a bank so that we can loan people money of our own, so that we can start building up our own power structure. Let's build our own community, build houses, so a construction company that we can rely on. And this is how we gain respect. And we push the oppression back. And the other system, protect and serve, which is police station, which is the police, will not come into our communities and and want to arrest and want to shoot people because we have our own system. We're not living on somebody else's ground, we're living on our own grounds.
That's a very good point. So whose fault is that? I mean, like you said, if blacks need to build an infrastructure and put things in place to help their own, the unfortunate thing, what I see, and it's just in my circles of what I've seen in the little time that I've been on earth, a lot of the ones that potentially have made it, they go about buying yachts, having these frivolous, you mentioned some individuals, I'm not gonna call their names, so they might give the Boys and Girls Club or whatever, but with all the millions of dollars that have been channeled through their hands, they're not putting things in place to institutionalize and change the very fabric of society when it comes down to their people. They are busy doing other things with their money. Whose fault is that? Because you can't make people see the vision or do X, Y, and Z with their resources. A lot of them have done good works and given to charities and so on and so forth. But what you're talking about trying to help establish something to help their own people, you get very few of those individuals really doing that. You know, they're not giving back. You know, you can watch on television about the stars and how they're going out buying yachts and planes and all this other kind of stuff. They're not talking about building schools and I'm not saying all of them are doing this, but you know, there's a lot more I feel like they could put in place because they have the resources to do it. If you have money to blow on these parties, frivolous parties, and millions that just throwing away and this and that and that, you know, you can put that stuff towards education. To be honest with you, I personally believe that every African American, based on from our history, should have the opportunity to go to school for free, a higher education up to getting their bachelor's degree. And that's the way I would have it. Based on, if you want to talk about reparations and things like that, see, there's a lot of things that our race have been deprived of. We never got our 40 acres and a mule, you know. So I understand all of this, but we, the African Americans that are here, we came through adversity. So, and with the whole slave thing and all of that, there's still the effects of it. I don't care what people try to say, even though we have made tremendous strides, we will always have that stigma. And so we're never going to be probably at the advantages that other races have because of where we come from. Now, we're nowhere where we used to be. And we could maybe be a lot better off, but like you said, when people come up out of that basket, a lot of them are not giving back. They're not putting things in place to turn the very fabric of society. In other words, to help the other ones come through without having to go through the drug trade and all of that and end up over in prison like it's doing very well in Delaware and countless other states. Because I would venture to say that the majority of our young men or the prisons are predominantly African American, probably in the majority of all the states in the United States. There's a reason for that, you know. So with this modern slave trade day going on, it's a whole lot of issues concerning us. But like you said, part of the problem is the ones that do have the resources, where are they putting it? And are they building an economy for our people? I don't really see that. So we're going to have these kind of problems. And so it goes back, I'm saying all that to say, it still goes back when I first started saying what I was saying. Bring them up right. I'm all in prevention. If they don't have to even get in certain arenas, you know, so that we don't have to be part of a system that brings all this stuff down on us, because we're already living in a society that we got to deal with. It's not that the culture of it is not going to change because there's not as many of us here. It was something to even be able to get a president that was half black. I mean, that was because of some other dynamics of things going on as to why that even took place. Other than that, you see what the leadership has been all for over 200 years. You see what I'm saying? So when you talk about unfairness and racial disparity, yes, all these things exist, but what hurts me the most is this, is that we have children coming up now that although we have the freedoms that we didn't have in the past, they're not even taking advantage of that. You know, somebody died that I might go to school. And the way we was raised, there was no way I wasn't going to finish school because I knew too much about my history, not for me to let that blood cry from the ground. Somebody died so I can read a book. I'm not gonna stand with my pants hanging down my behind, up against a wall, talking about like they ain't going to school when somebody died for you to go. So some of this stuff we're bringing on ourselves because some freedoms have been awarded or allotted to us. And we're damaging now ourselves. So I'm trying to look at the bigger picture of it. It's not always we can blame it on another race now. What are we doing with the privileges and the freedoms that we have right now? Some of it we're bringing it on ourselves, so we can't keep doing the blame game even though the system's out there. Some of this stuff we are doing to ourselves, and that's what must stop.
He addresses that too. Like, so I mean, didn't mean to take it to me, but he addressed that. I didn't want to address this right now, but we will address that. He addressed that. Let me read what he says, Ray Jasper says. He says, a French woman who moved to America asked me one day, why don't black kids want to learn?
Her husband was a high school teacher. She said the white and Asian kids excelled in school, but the black and Hispanic kids don't. I said that all kids want to learn. It's just a matter of what you're trying to teach them. Cutting a frog open is not helping a black kid in the ghetto who has to listen to police sirens all night and worry about getting shot. Those kids need life lessons. They need direction. When you have black kids learning more about the Boston Tea Party than the Black Panther Party, I guarantee you're going to get to keep their attention. But it was the Black Panther Party that got them free lunch. He goes on to say, people point their finger at young blacks, call them thugs, and say they need to pull their pants up, pull up their pants. That's fine, but you're not feeding them any knowledge. You're not giving them a vision. All you're saying is, be square like me. They're not going to listen to you because you have guys like Jay-Z, Rick Ross, who are millionaires, and sag their pants. Changing the way they dress isn't changing the way they think. As the Bible says, where there's no vision, the people perish. Young blacks need to learn their identity so they can have more respect for the blacks that suffer for their liberties than have for someone talking about selling drugs over a rap beat who really isn't selling drugs. They have to be exposed to something new. Their minds have to be challenged, not diluted or dulled. They know the history of the Crips and Bloods, but they can't tell you who Garvey or Robertson is.
Okay.
They can quote Drake and Lil Wayne, but they can't tell you what Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton has done. Across the nation, they gravitate to Crips and Bloods. I tell those who know the same thing not to pit blue and red before black. They were black first. It's senseless, but they are trying to find a purpose to live for, and it's a game. And if a game gives them a sense of purpose, that's what they need. That's what they will gravitate to. They are being taught to live and die for something greater. They're not being challenged to do better.
So in other words, what he's saying, he goes on to say, pause it. Did you pause it? Oh, you want to answer? All right, well, she can edit it. He goes on to say is that a lot of black people is chasing money, a fast way out. Because we believe that if we get money, whether we get it illegal or legal, it's a way of freedom. Because we know no better. And people that got any type of age on them or have any type of knowledge know that money don't bring freedom. Most time money brings problems. But our young kids don't know that, but they see their parents struggling. They see their next door neighbors struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to struggle because they don't understand the significance of struggling, not having, but striving to get. But then they turn around, they turn on the TV, they see Jay-Z or Lil Wayne, they got the big old chains on, they got flashing money and $500 expensive cars, living in nice big old houses. They want that. It's better than where they live in, and they want that too. Mm-hmm. So, but me saying, well, you know, a teacher comes and says, we got to dissect this frog and learn the anatomy of this frog. I mean, do you think they really want to hear that?
It's not about what we want to hear. It's about what it takes to learn life and be educated. There's a whole. That's almost like somebody young trying to talk about. I don't want to learn the ABCs. What is that doing for me right now? That's, you know, so it's the same thing about when he talked about dissecting the frog. That's a part of science, and everything has a purpose to it. And this is why it's important that children stop raising children, because if you're educated right and you're bringing up children, the parents are supposed to be laying a foundation for their children's learning process and giving them understanding as to why they need to learn that. See, a lot of times we leave things to the school. No, you as a parent is supposed to be there to give that child that understanding about the learning process. There's a whole lot of stuff that we got to do in order to have that. So without any struggle, there's no progress. Like Frederick Douglass, I believe, made that quote. You know, so like when my boys went to school, I was intricately involved in their learning process. Do you think that they did everything because they felt like doing it? No, there was a reason and a purpose for them having to learn geometry and algebra and so on.
Oscar J. Dunn, former Lieutenant Governor of Louisiana. Anna Julia Cooper, educator, writer, feminist. Henry O. Flipper, West Point graduate, Army officer, engineer. 3 different people, one common beginning. They were all born slaves. Now what can't you do? Black history. Pass it on.
That's pass interference. Hello, that's my. Oh my. Ooh. Okay. Really?
Huh?
I said really. As in, really, you just gonna come in here and plop down on my couch, disrupting me?
I'm sorry, Dad. I was just listening to my soul music.
Your soul? Oh, girl, you mean gospel?
What? No. This is real music, not that churchy stuff you and Mom listen to.
Not that churchy. Okay, well, what kind of soul music is it then?
What are you talking about?
Is it Detroit soul?
What's Detroit soul?
You know, Motown, Stevie Wonder, Jackson 5, Diana Ross.
What?
Honey,
No,
honey, your daughter's in here listening to soul music.
Oh, you mean gospel?
Apparently not.
Well, honey, if it's soul music, it came from gospel. It's not gospel. Oh, is it a New Orleans soul? What? You know, like a Aaron Neville, Little Richard.
Oh, is it Philly soul? Like the Spinners and the OJs smiling all up in your face?
No. Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. If you don't know me by now.
If you don't.
Honey, whatever it is you're listening to, if it's some kind of soul music, it probably got its start, you know, its roots in the church with gospel.
British soul. Sade, Estelle, Josh Stone.
Yeah, that's a good one, honey. Right
Thanks,
down.
baby. I get one in once in a while.
That's a good one. Hello. This is my music.
Yep.
Almost all the acts you mentioned are old. Well, honey, if it's a soul or R&B act, they probably got started in the church. Like who?
Okay, like who do you listen to?
Mary J. Blige. Started in the church. Anthony Hamilton.
Church.
Beyonce. Church. Oh, and school choirs.
John Legend.
Usher.
Justin Timberlake.
Chris Brown.
Yeah. I had to think a little. I'm not sure about that. I don't know.
The point is, R&B came from soul, and soul music came from gospel. So the church is the bedrock for a lot of today's artists. That's kind of cool. Okay, you got me. Yes, I do. Now get on.
Yeah, we got you. Yeah, you got homework to do. Go get some homework. Go got that. Go got some calculus. How about that? Got some A's and B's.
Let's see. What's she listening to here?
Is it explicit?
I don't know.
She better not be listening to nothing no explicit. Oh, hey. Harlem Shake. I'm Harlem Shaking.
You're not really.
I'm Harlem Shaking.
My name is Pastor Frederick Allen, Senior Pastor Frederick Allen Ministries, and this is Pastor
Sandy Wright.
Wright. Today we're going to highlight Ray Jasper letter. Ain't no way that we're supporting Ray Jasper in the heinous crime that he committed. It was a horrific crime against another family that he never took responsibility for committing. Anyway, we just want to highlight this letter because there's some things in this letter that I think was very profound
and it touched me, and I would like to share those things with you and get your opinion, and I would like to render my opinion also, Pastor Sandra's opinion, about certain aspects within this letter. This is a picture of the man Reed Jasper, and this is the man that he has killed. He killed him for studio equipment. It wasn't partners, but he did go to the studio to do sessions because he was an inspired rapper. He had his own rapping group, but he wanted money so that he could move in with his wife or his girlfriend into an apartment, so he decided to rob and kill David. I can't pronounce his last name, so I'm not going to say it. I don't want to embarrass myself. Alejandro. Okay. I'm going to turn the mic over to Pastor Sandra and tell me what you think about it.
The point that I was trying to make in regards to this whole ism with, let's say, African Americans in the United States, we came from a very, what I would call, adverse situation. Most people know that our ancestors came and they was slaves and so on and so forth, went through the whole civil rights movement and Reconstruction and all of that, and so had to gain certain rights in areas and the right to vote and the right to do this and right to. So to make a long story short, just in the small time that I've been here on earth and seeing and knowing what I'm seeing, I don't really see our race being totally liberated in that we're still in what I call a modern slave trade situation. Back then, they might have been picking cotton, okay, working, in the master's house and so on and so forth. Now, the new slave trade is the prison system. It's still the suppression of African American males. And how did they now get this new slave trade going? Well, through the infiltration of drugs in our community, single parentness, because they know without the man in the home, the oversight and training them up to be men and so on and so forth. So we can break down the home structure. Now these children are now an open target for the drug culture that leads to now laws being put in place to ensure that they're put away for X amount of years. So with that being said, now, if you have a drug charge and, okay, they're going to give you 20 years in prison for or whatever, well, that's a good majority of your life or your active life where you could be in society making a difference. And you're missing out of the upbringing of your children and so on and so forth. So now, this whole system, and as you alluded to, it's privatized. It's a system in place where now they're doing things in such a way that it's a living entity of suppression, And unfortunately, most of the prisons are African American. The percentage is mainly, I believe in most states, the majority is probably African American. Now I could be wrong, but I know in Delaware it is, so I can speak for Delaware. So the thing about it with myself and how mine were able to escape the system, they had a lot of teaching and upbringing. I didn't leave it to just the schools to train up my children. I took responsibility and ownership for their upbringing. They not only was taught in the home, they went to church. So they had some spiritual guidance because God can do what I can't do. And God has to give them the right spirit so that they know how to even, deal with one another and love one another. So that's God's doing. So we have to take ownership for the rearing and the upbringing of our children. And with that being said, if we don't, a lot of people's children are going to be victimized by the modern day slave trade of the prison system. Now, to roll it all the way back, and when you were saying about, and to what the gentleman had said that was executed last year, there is so much that needs to be taught as you're raising up a generation that's not even a part of our society of upbringing. And one of the things is we don't learn a lot about our history. That's number one. And then so that it would give us passion for finishing school and doing, that's, to me, that's like fuel to the fire. That when we understand our history, say, oh, well, we better be going to school because so-and-so died and this one fought for them, you know. So that's fuel for you to do the right thing and see the need to get an education, so you'll dissect that frog, okay? So that's the fuel coming that, okay, we got to learn all of this, you know, because somebody died for me. And then secondly, okay, you know, there's not a lot put in place as far as teaching us about the judicial, political system and legal systems. Whose fault is that? So, you know, with us sitting on this side and us talking about it, obviously we see a need for that cultivation because it's not a part of our upbringing. You don't see kids being reared up understanding about really the government, about legal, the penalties for sin, for certain sins, what they are. Look, the Bible is very clear about penalties. When God gave the law to Moses, he said, okay, if you do this, then that's get the death. God was into the death penalty back then. Just about everything was the death penalty. Thank God we're under mercy and grace now, because there were a lot of people be having heaps of stones up on top of their head for adultery and everything else. You know what I'm saying? So, but God was very strict in his laws. So thank God for grace today that we can have forgiveness for a lot of things that they were killed for back in the Old Testament. So all I'm saying is there's a lot of stuff that needs to be in place to teach children what they need to know. They need to be in what I call life centers. That life center teaches them what they need to know. All the things that they, because school cannot do everything. They cannot be the social worker. They cannot, you know, they want, I feel sorry for teachers, and I love to teach, but I wouldn't want to be a teacher in school because there's just too much pulling at us. We gotta, okay, now be the mentor. We gotta be the tutor. We gotta teach them in school. And now I gotta play, you know, the counselor. You know, they having a, you know, this teachers are being pulled on every side. They got families too. You know, they got other things that they need to be doing, but some of these children are so needy because of the deficiency in the home. So I'm saying all that to say this. We can't sit and do all the blame game and all that. We have to take responsibility for our own race. And that's where we have fallen short at. And a lot of the batons, to me, have not been passed down properly. Some of them dropped the batons. They didn't get to the next generation. The Bible even talks about how there was a generation that grew up that didn't know Joseph. And that's how the Jews got into slavery. Joseph used to be the prime minister. He was next to Pharaoh. Now, how is it that after years went past, they didn't know? A new Pharaoh was saying, we don't know this Joseph. Okay, now let's enslave these people. We don't know who this man, you know. So it's the same thing going on now. These kids are being bred up. We don't know Rosa Parks. We don't know this, we don't know more, all, you know. Matter of fact, they're not even telling it like it really is. Like, if I see now, like a new kid coming up, and I didn't know what I knew about Martin Luther King, I wouldn't be thinking what I know about him because of the way he's painted now. The struggle is not even really put out there. The passion and the whole spirit of it is missing. You know, because now, when it gets in the hands of other folks, they glamorize it like, you know, he was for all peoples. Yeah, I mean, it was like, you know, it's not really put out there to put the depth in people to really turn them to do the right stuff and have the passion. So all I'm saying is a lot of batons have been dropped in our own race, which now has victimized our own race. So I can't sit now and blame everything and everybody else for what's going on out here. We know it's all out here, but we have to resume responsibility for our own race. And I also alluded to the fact that to the ones that have made it, they're not making no big turnaround in society to really change a whole state. We have 50 states. What state could we point to say that all these big wigs, okay, let's say the African American that makes all this money, change the whole state around for us? Not one. Because they're not putting their money out there like that. Because they got other plans and agendas. So they're not really caring about their race the way we're thinking about it, that we want to see systemic change. So we can't even point to one state. Now, I'm not talking about all 50. We can't say one state has an allegiance and an alliance of all these so-called millionaires, whether it's Puff Daddy, Big Daddy, or whoever all these folks is, to really say, we're going to change. We have enough money to change the state. They ain't thinking like that. So my thing is, whose fault really is it?
celebrates Black History Month, presenting Because of Them We Can. Honoring Maya Angelou, poet.
Pretty women wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to suit a fashion model size. But when I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies. I say, it's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my step, the curl of my lips. I'm a woman. And I'm a believe. Phenomenal woman. That's us. Because of them, we can.
For more information on Maya Angelou, visit nick.com/thanks.
I have other things, tools to fight with. And so this is why I advocate for people to serve God, get saved, and have the kingdom power working for you to live in such a wicked society that if in fact it try to get its tentacles in you, then we have the power and the ability to get out of those things. So what I'm trying to do is help the ones that I can with the wisdom that I know and the knowledge that I know. And then above all, Jesus said, I was in prison and you visited me not. The sheer fact is we don't have prison. And unfortunately, the ones that are in there that should not be in there, I gotta go visit them. He gonna say to the Christians, where was y'all at? I was in that. See, it didn't say that there was not gonna be a prison. But we as Christians need to go visit the prisons. And when you had mentioned that, and I said, a movie came on tonight, and almost scary because when Butchko told me about what we were going to be talking about, I was like, why is this prison movie coming on? And the actual prison movie came on, and I watched the whole thing in the prison movie, and it came on again, I think today or whatever, and this ghost, it came back because a man was executed that should not have been, so a ghost came back to haunt the prison and got all those, and was even killing the prisoners that didn't even have anything to do with it because he was wrongfully executed. So I said, wow, I said, this must be on target about what we're supposed to talk about, because that very night, I watched this haunted prison movie, you know, and because they first closed it down after that execution or whatever. But then they opened it back up because they claimed they didn't have the money, and they stuck all these prisoners in it, and one by one, this ghost was in there from the person that was wrongly executed, killing off the prisoners, killing the guards, and all this kind of stuff. I was like, and I really felt like, wow, what's going on in the prisons now? The unfair treatment and all of that. It made me think about that. And I was saying to myself, maybe it's time to really get on in there in the prisons and make it better. How to turn some things around for the prisoners. So I'm really thinking, I mean, for real, along those lines now, about going into the prisons to make a difference. Because of the unfair treatment that some of them are being victimized by. We might not be able to stop the system, all of it, but we may be able to get in to help in some kind of way while they're in there. Because above all, like I said, Jesus said, I was in prison and you visited me not. So hopefully that in this season, you know, God can use us to go in and make a difference for the lives of the prisoners that are in there, especially to those that belong to Him.
I enjoyed listening to what you had to say. It was really interesting, and I appreciate your wisdom. Like he was saying, just was saying, you know, sometimes we just got to throw pebble or rock in the water and cause it to be a ripple effect, and people to be affected all around you. And sometimes we may not see the effect that we're having, but there is an effect. And this is why I want to do recording. I have Vigilant Ministries for not just for Delaware, but for around the world. And so I placed this on video on YouTube and on Facebook. I was doing 28, but it's not there, so that our words can reach somebody will be somebody else. A revolution means nothing but change. That's all it means. Change. And
the power of one is important. You know, it takes one to change a nation.
Sport reminds us what history has long revealed, that courage is contagious, that the actions of a single individual can impact those whose faces they will never see, and that a single voice can resound through generations. We honor those who have let their actions and their voices speak, not only for themselves, but for us all, whether by standing tall as an icon of integrity and greatness, by standing up to a school and a system that would deny her right to participate, or by refusing to stand for intolerable abuse on the field of play, or even simply by standing firm in the face of obstacles that would otherwise deter the pursuit of the sport they love. And while these stories are individual, the lessons are universal. We may never follow in their footsteps, but we can follow their example and rise to the challenges that we face with the courage, the conscience, and the power that resides in each of us. The power of one.